My name is Lyndon Rowe. I am 60 years old. That morning began like most others quiet. Soft light over the kitchen table. The hum of the refrigerator steady as breath. I had made tea and set out a single plate, meaning to treat myself to a slice of toast with honey. Before I could take a sip, my phone chimed. The message came from my daughter, Camille. The message flashed from Camille Mom. My MIL's tea party is our family's priority. We can't come to your Milestone birthday. I stared at the tiny yellow face, grinning innocently, as if it didn't understand the weight of its words. The words, our family, echoed louder than the rest. For a moment, I thought I might have read it wrong. Then I realized she had chosen her words carefully. I typed a reply before thinking, words stiff on the screen. That's fine, sweetheart. I hit send, feeling the finality of it echo in the quiet kitchen. The sound of the message leaving my phone was final, like a door closing from the other side. My tea went cold. Outside, a bird called once and flew off, as if even it had better places to be. I sat there a long time, remembering birthdays when Camille was small, her frosting-covered fingers, her crooked songs, her promise that she'd always bake me a cake. The years had thinned those memories, but they were still warm enough to hurt. The phone screen dimmed and went black. I caught my reflection in its tired eyes, the kind that had learned to hide disappointment. I pressed the phone face down on the table, in the stillness. Something inside me shifted, faint but sure. I didn't know what it was yet, only that this silence between us had weight now. By the time the clock reached noon, I poured the cold tea down the sink, washed the cup, and decided not to wait for another message. Later that evening, when her name lit up my phone again, it wasn't to wish me a happy birthday. It was an invitation from Patricia Hart, my daughter's mother-in-law. It was 3 years before the message. Camille had just married into the Hart family, and Patricia insisted on hosting a welcome dinner. Her house felt like a museum, polished floors, chandeliers that hummed when the air conditioner started. I sat beside Camille at the long dining table, my napkin folded too neatly in my lap. Patricia poured wine as if she owned the night itself. To family, she said, lifting her glass, and to those lucky enough to join ours. Camille smiled quickly, glancing at me as if to check how I'd take it. I lifted my own glass, though the wine burned sharp on my tongue. Patricia leaned toward me, voice warm but cold underneath. You must be proud. Camille told us you managed on your own after her father passed. That kind of resilience is admirable. Thank you, I said. We got through. She smiled wider. Of course. Now she has us to lean on. She won't have to work herself too hard anymore. Camille laughed softly, the kind of laugh that doesn't belong to you. Mom, Patricia's just saying she wants to help. I nodded, pretending to understand. The silverware clinked in perfect rhythm. Patricia's hand rested on Camille's shoulder, gentle but firm, like a claim. By dessert, she was already calling my daughter dear. By coffee, she was planning next Sunday's brunch without looking my way. When we said goodbye, Camille hugged me quickly at the door. Don't worry, Mom, she whispered. She just has a big personality. I smiled, pretending it didn't matter. But that night, driving home through the quiet Savannah streets, I felt something closing around us, something that had already begun to take her away. Camille came by on a Sunday afternoon, carrying a basket of muffins she hadn't baked. She looked beautiful, polished, the kind of glow that comes from living a life where nothing is ever urgent. Mom, she said, stepping inside without waiting. We need to talk about something important. It's good news, actually. I poured her coffee. The way I always did. Good news sounds nice. She smiled too wide. Patricia found this amazing opportunity. She's been working with a financial advisor who specializes in real estate partnerships. There's this tax loophole that could help all of us. If you move part of your retirement funds into the new plan, it'll grow so much faster. I set her cup down. My retirement is fine where it is. Honey, it's just sitting there, she said quickly. This way, it could double. Patricia's already invested a lot. We'd all benefit. I'm sure she has. I said, but your father and I planned that money carefully. It's not for risks. Camille sighed, her fingers tapping against the mug. You always think everyone's out to use you. That's why Dad's money just sat all those years. Doing nothing. The words hit harder than she knew. I looked at her, the daughter I'd once taught to balance a checkbook on a kitchen counter stained with jam, and saw a stranger using her father's name like currency. That money fed you, educated you, kept you debt-free. I said softly, doing nothing was exactly its purpose. She stared down at her nails. I'm just trying to help. Patricia says I know what Patricia says. I cut in, quiet but firm, and I've heard enough. Camille blinked, surprise flashing in her eyes. I thought you'd want to be part of something bigger. I already am. I said, it's called my own life. For a moment, she didn't move. Then she stood, smoothing her dress, mask back in place. Fine. I'll tell Patricia you're not interested. Do that, I said. She kissed my cheek, airlight and cold. When the door closed behind her, the smell of her perfume lingered sweet, expensive, and impossible to breathe. A week after Camille's visit, I found a gold envelope slipped between the bills and grocery flyers in my mailbox. The paper was heavy, the kind that tried to feel important. My name was written in an elegant script I didn't recognize. Inside, the card read, Family Heritage Tea, Saturday, March 12th. The date stopped me. March 12th, my 60th birthday. I turned the card over, half expecting a note from Camille. Some mention of me. There was nothing. Just Patricia's crest printed in gold at the bottom, her family name shining brighter than the ink. That evening, I called Camille. I got an invitation today. I said, Oh, she answered lightly. Patricia must have sent them out early this year. It's on my birthday. A pause. Oh, right. I didn't even notice. But Mom, Patricia's mom, is flying in from Palm Beach. It's a big deal for them. For them. I repeated. I'll make it up to you, she said quickly. We'll do something small later. Maybe dinner. Of course, I said. Something small. After we hung up, I opened my laptop. On social media, Camille's face filled the screen, smiling beside Patricia. Both wearing pearls. Arms linked. The caption read, Family means everything. The comments were full of hearts and compliments. I scrolled until my eyes blurred, then closed the lid gently. My reflection faint against the black surface. I sat there for a long time, hands resting on the table, listening to the quiet house. Somewhere down the street, someone was laughing, the sound drifting through the window like a life that didn't belong to me. When I finally turned off the light, the invitation still lay on the counter, gold edges catching the dark. The phone rang just after sunset. I was folding laundry, the kind of chore that fills silence when you're not ready to face it. Mrs. Rowe, a woman said, cheerful and uncertain. This is Lillian from Magnolia Bakery. I just wanted to confirm your daughter called this afternoon to cancel the cake order. She said plans changed. For a second, I couldn't speak. Cancel. Yes. Ma'am. The lemon chiffon with buttercream roses. She sounded sure. My hands trembled around the phone. Thank you for letting me know, I said, and hung up before my voice cracked. The clock on the wall ticked too loudly. I stared at the laundry, the soft colors blurring until I couldn't tell the shirts from the towels. Then I picked up my keys. In the bright aisles, I chose a single cupcake white frosting, one lonely candle tucked beside it. I brought it home, placed it on a plate, and sat at the kitchen table. When I lit the candle, the small flame wavered. Catching the edge of my reflection in the window, I whispered, "Happy birthday to me." The words sounded strange in the quiet house. I thought of Owen, his laugh. The way he used to clap for me when I burned pancakes or finished a puzzle, saying, "When they stop clapping for you, clap for yourself." I took a breath and smiled. Then I reached for my old laptop. Its keys were worn smooth, but it still started with a soft hum. In my inbox waited an email titled, "Property Title, Maui." I opened it, my pulse steadying as I scrolled through the documents finalized. Signed, complete. No one knew about the villa. Not Camille. Not anyone. It had taken years of quiet work consulting contracts. Careful investments, all done without announcement. The papers glowed faintly on the screen. The legal lines forming a quiet kind of proof I still had something that was mine alone. I blew out the candle, watching a thin wisp of smoke rise and fade into the dim kitchen. Then I closed the laptop gently and whispered to the dark, "Thank you, Owen. I'll take it from here." That night I couldn't sleep. The candle smell lingered, sweet and sharp, while the papers from Maui kept flashing in my mind. I got up and sat at the kitchen table again, the same place where I'd read my daughter's message days before. It started years ago, my second life. After Owen died, I told everyone I had stopped working. That wasn't true. Quietly. I took on consulting contracts for smaller firms, advising on mergers and pension plans. Numbers calmed me. They never lied, never pitied. Every check went straight into a savings account under my name, untouched. One night, while reviewing a client's portfolio, I saw a listing for a property in Maui, glass walls, ocean view, cliffside foundation. It cost $2 million, far beyond reach at the time. But I couldn't shake the thought of it. Sunlight, peace. No one asking me to explain myself. So I built toward it. A year became 3. By the 5th, Roe Pacific Holdings existed, registered quietly in Delaware. No one ever asked, and I never volunteered. Sitting in that same chair years later, I opened a file of photographs, the villa complete, pale stone gleaming against the sea. My chest tightened, not with pain, but with quiet triumph. I picked up the phone and called the caretaker. "Hi. This is Lyndon Rowe." A pause, then a cheerful voice. "Oh, Mrs. Rowe, the villa's ready any time you'd like to visit." "I'm coming," I said. "Tomorrow, if possible. Tomorrow." "Yes, I need to celebrate something." When I hung up, I felt the room change. The silence that had weighed me down for months began to feel different, lighter, expectant. I packed slowly. 2 dresses, a book, Owen's watch. In the hallway mirror, I saw a woman who no longer looked like someone waiting to be invited. Before leaving for the airport, I wrote a note and taped it to the fridge. "Gone to celebrate. Don't wait up." As I locked the front door, the morning air brushed cool against my face. I thought of Camille and Patricia, the tea party, the laughter I wouldn't hear if they forgot my birthday. I whispered, sliding the suitcase into the car. "I'll remember myself." The city was still waking as I drove toward the airport. The horizon glowed faintly pink, like the world had already begun without them. By the time my flight lifted above the clouds, Savannah shrank beneath me, a small place that once held everything I thought I needed. I closed my eyes and let the hum of the plane fill the space where hurt used to live. When I arrived in Maui, the air felt different, lighter, almost unfamiliar, as if it didn't know my name yet. The caretaker greeted me at the gate with flowers and quiet warmth. "Happy birthday, Mrs. Rowe," she said, and I almost laughed. I hadn't told her. That evening, the villa felt too big, but not lonely, just new. The staff had followed my instructions: one small table on the terrace, White linen, a single candle. A young violinist from the village tuned his instrument nearby. Nervous, but smiling. "Play what you like," I told him. "Something that sounds like water." He nodded and began. The notes drifted toward the ocean, soft and trembling. Dinner was simple fish, wine, bread warm enough to steam. I ate slowly, hearing each sound as if it mattered, the fork against porcelain, the bow on the strings, the sea breathing below. When the caretaker brought out a small cake, I felt my throat tighten. She placed it down gently, as if afraid to break the moment. "Would you like me to sing?" she asked. I smiled. "No, I think I'll do that part myself." I stood, raised my glass, and whispered to the wind, to peace, to survival, to still being here. The violinist kept playing. The candle flickered in the breeze. I let the tears come, then not from hurt, but from release. I thought of Camille somewhere across the ocean, sitting in another woman's living room. Laughing over tea, I wondered if she'd think of me, even for a second. Then I stopped wondering. When the music faded, I thanked the violinist and told the caretaker she could go home early. I stayed there alone, the night warm against my shoulders, the waves steady and patient. For the first time in years, I felt seen by the only person who had ever needed to. Me. A week passed before I touched my phone again. The villa had settled around me: quiet mornings, long swims, dinners where I didn't bother setting 2 plates. I hadn't planned to post anything. But that morning, as the light stretched across the water, I opened my gallery and chose 3 pictures. One of the sea, one of the villa's glass walls catching the sun, and one of me barefoot, smiling, hair still wind-blown from the terrace. I typed the caption slowly: 60, serene, grateful. Then I pressed share, turned off notifications, and slipped the phone face down on the table. That afternoon, I walked down the beach, the sand cool beneath my feet. For once, no one expected anything from me. When I came back that night, the phone was still dark. I left it that way. In the morning, it blinked with light messages stacking one over another until the screen froze. 87 missed calls. From Camille Mom. "Why didn't you tell me? We thought you were alone." Another from Patricia, clipped and formal. "You should have mentioned your property. That kind of secrecy isn't healthy for families." I laughed softly. Families. Outside, the waves broke against the rocks. Steady and sure, I opened the sliding door, letting the sound fill the room. I didn't call anyone back. Instead, I made tea, sat by the water, and smiled to myself. The world they'd built for me had finally crumbled, and I hadn't lifted a hand. The call came the next evening. Just as the sun began to fade over the water, the screen lit with Camille's name. For a moment, I almost didn't answer. Then I did. Her voice came fast, breathless. "Mom, Patricia feels terrible." We didn't know. I stopped her gently. "You knew, darling. You just didn't care to ask." There was a small sound on the line, something between a gasp and a sob. "That's not fair," she whispered. "You've always thought the worst of us." I let the silence stretch. "You canceled my cake, Camille. You chose someone else's table over mine. Tell me, what part of that was love?" She didn't reply. Then another voice slid through the line, smooth, practiced, familiar. "Patricia? Mrs. Rowe," she said, tone polite enough to wound. "You could have been part of this family if you tried harder. I gave you every opportunity to fit in." I almost smiled. I didn't realize I needed to audition. Patricia's voice sharpened. "We thought you were struggling. We wanted to help. You could have come to us. I didn't need to." I said, "I built something of my own." "Your little villa," she said, laughing softly. "It's a pretty picture." But money doesn't make you family. No, I said, respect does. You lost that the day you taught my daughter to forget her roots. There was a long pause. Then Camille said quietly, Mom, please, don't make this worse. Worse, I said. It already was. You just didn't see it. Patricia muttered something I couldn't catch. Something clipped and defensive. I heard Camille whisper her name, as if trying to calm her. I took a breath and said, Camille, I hope one day you find a family that claps for you without being told when to. Mom, wait. But I didn't. I pressed the red button. The phone buzzed once in my hand, then went still. Outside, the last light sank over the ocean, soft gold on blue. I set the phone down. Silence returned. Familiar. My heartbeat slowed. Calm, almost peaceful. For the first time, I didn't feel left out. I felt finished. Weeks passed before I heard anything more. The messages slowed, then stopped altogether. The quiet didn't ache anymore, it settled. Like something that finally found its shape. One morning, I wrote a postcard. It was a photo of the villa at sunset, the sky burning gold above the water. On the back, in neat handwriting, I wrote, "Thank you for not coming." It made everything perfect. I didn't sign it. I just wrote the address, slipped it into the mailbox near the path, and kept walking. Later that week, I imagined Camille finding it standing in her bright kitchen. Mail scattered on the counter. I could almost hear her voice. That small, startled whisper when she realized what the photo meant. Maybe Patricia would be beside her, pretending not to care, pretending it didn't sting, but that part wasn't mine to see anymore. That evening, I brewed tea and sat on the porch. The tide rolled close enough to mist the edge of my cup. I turned on the porch light, a simple habit, a small kindness to myself. They chose their family, I said quietly. Watching the light reach across the water, I chose peace. The wind lifted the ends of my hair, carrying the scent of salt and rain. Somewhere far beyond the waves, planes came and went. People hurrying toward places they thought mattered. Here, nothing hurried. I took another sip of tea and leaned back, letting the rhythm of the sea fill the silence. The light stayed on, steady against the dark, no longer waiting for anyone to come home. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't revenge. It was something smaller, softer, and truer. It was mine. Was.